they won't let her in. So I was retching the entire time uncontrollably. I couldn't really speak for myself. Yet they're trying to take my temperature and, the usual check-in procedure. And when they were checking me in, the lady, she noticed that my vaccination card was in with my identification. And she said, "You're half vaccinated," like this, not half. She said, you're recently vaccinated. That's what she said. And I was like, "Yeah, it's right there on the card." And her eyes, she looked like there was fear in her eyes, but nothing was said about it. And that wasn't put into the reason why I was so sick and
But
took the
let's
second.
take a pause. Let's take a pause.
Sorry,
That
I'll tend
no,
to
no,
run
no.
off.
I just want to, sorry, to interject. At my interpretation of that is like, oh, another one. What are we going to do with this? Because we have to hide it. So how did you interpret it?
I saw all of that in her eyes. I mean, you can't see anything else of them but their eyes and their voice, and in the tone of her voice, it was concern. There was concern in her voice, and it was the usual, like, circus at the emergency room, honestly, just a bunch of young kids, pretending or practicing how to do their job. And there was like very little compassion until like one guy showed up. All I could remember was his tattoos on his arms, and I was like, "Oh, pretty." And he was like, "What can I do for you?" And he's like, "What's the worst?" I was like, "Nausea and then pain." So he gave me, stuff for nausea and then the pain, and I fell asleep for hours. Had a CT scan, was told, yes, I have fibroids, and basically at the end of that day, it's hard for me to remember because I was so drowsy, that they sent me on my way. But then I went
Hold
home.
on. So how long is this, all of this?
Well, 2 days. It was kind of like I went back to the hospital again.
Okay, but this
Because
first time where you're drugged and then you wake up and you realize that, so the goal was we're going to do an ultrasound, not an MRI, to see
a CT
what's
scan, they did
happening in that area.
in that area, correct.
Okay, so that
And
takes a
so,
day.
because we were just thinking that's what it was. It was just, my usual, and we have to, the doctor has to see what's going on. So he got the CT scan, and he could see that I had issues in there, but nothing too bad or whatever. And so they sent me home, and then I got home, fell asleep, and then woke up. I don't even know if it was the next day. I think it was like the next late morning. Yeah, it was pretty late, and I had to go to the hospital again.
Are you alone at home at this point? Someone with you?
My sister, thank God for my sister, because she always takes me to the hospital, because usually I protest, like, "Oh, I don't need to go." And I'm not a hypochondriac. And so, and it's okay if you are, that's whatever. Um, I don't want to offend any
Recovering.
hypochondriacs
I'm a
out there.
recovering.
And and so yeah, my sister, what was I talking about? I forgot already.
So
Yeah,
you have your
I
sister.
tend to block it out because it was pretty traumatic the second night
Yeah, so
thing.
tell us now the second. Is that when you get drugged again?
So the second time I went in, the check-in was outside. They wouldn't let me in, and so I was sitting like
Sorry,
right
what
out.
hospital is this?
This is Glendale Adventist
Okay.
in Glendale, California, and they had like tents set up outside, and they would all have their suits on, and and this girl comes up and does a test on me, and I'd never had this kind of test where she shoves a big old, like, giant uh cotton cleaner thing up my nose, whatever you call those things.
It's called nostril. Laura.
Not, it was, man, it was horrible. She shoved it so hard up my nose that I immediately screamed and started crying.
Mm.
And she's like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" That's literally what she said. And she backed off, and everyone disappeared around me for like 5 minutes while I cried by myself.